President Cyril Ramaphosa has a long list of priorities now that he's assumed the role of African Union chair. Among them are peace and security, gender empowerment and silencing the guns. Ramaphosa was elected in Ethiopia yesterday. Let's get some analysis now. Siphamandla Zondi, a political analyst from the University of Pretoria, joins us via Skype. So Siphamandla, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Peace and security on the African continent is something that is going to be very difficult for the president to deal with. How does he go about it?
Yes, we should understand that the president takes over from a series of other presidents, and it takes over an agenda that has been in place for just over 10 years. So each president is expected to just build one small layer of a multiple layers that would finally give rise to silencing the guns. So he's not going to start now. And he will simply be building upon what has been done by others, firming up the foundations a little bit more, and hoping that by getting the African continental free trade area established, it will go a long way towards overcoming the developmental, socio-economic causes to conflict, and thus place one important layer on top of many layers that would be added for the next 10 years, I think, for this to result in very concrete changes in society.
Well, concrete changes is something we're not seeing being done on the continent very easily. So what plans can President Ramaphosa put in place to actually see that happen over the next couple of years? What's going to be different?
It's just to build upon what has been done. The continent is much more peaceful now than it was 10 years ago. The conflicts have reduced drastically over the past 15 years. Confidence in the ability of African and African institutions to do things has increased, as the Afrobarometer surveys show. And the ability of institutions, including civil society formations on the ground, to arrest conflict situations, as it happened in Liberia and Sierra Leone, where a group of women came together and ended that conflict. That confidence, that ability has been recognized. So all you need to do is harness more energies to make sure that the last 4 conflict spots that are still on the ground now end. And it is very easy to deal with them in very specific ways. The South Sudanese issue is very different from the Libyan issue. It's quite different from the Congolese issue. It's quite different also from the Burundi issue. And all of them are really solvable if specific tailor-made solutions are found for them, and if Africa is united in dealing with them. Because when Africa is divided, conflict actors tend to play one country in Africa against the other when they are divided.
Yeah. And then peace and security aside, the president also has to look at democratic governance in Africa. You look at the issue of LGBTI communities who are targeted by their own governments. How does the president deal with that one?
He was gifted a huge opportunity because the principal organ, the principal tool by which the continent deals with governance issues is called the African Peer Review Mechanism, where countries volunteers to be reviewed in relation to a number of targets, including those human rights and governance and service delivery and all of those things. Detailed reviews that have taken. Fortunately, the African Peer Review Mechanism has just been revived, operating much stronger now. It now has 40 member states that have signed up to it. It has stronger will, it has stronger ability. It can't be avoided anymore, and I hope we just make sure that it backs that one up very strongly, provides political backing for it for the APRM to mark out those countries that still do not abide by the African Charter on Democracy and Governance.
So let's talk about that, because you mentioned the word strong, and I feel like the AU and its chairs are softies when it comes to actually dealing with the issues that might upset some African leaders.
No, not quite. If we just look at, it's a perception, I know, but as usual, perceptions can be dispelled by facts. If you look at this fact about what reports the African Union produces in in situations such as Sudan, very tricky situations such as the DRC and other places. They're very hard-hitting, they're very open, they're very frank. They identify the real problem for what it is. The political will for leaders to abide by the advice of the African Union, because the African Union cannot impose itself on countries because it's not popularly elected. There are no elections for people in the African Union, and therefore they have that democracy deficit in terms of their constitution vis-a-vis national governments that are all elected. So the ability of leaders to follow the advice of the African Union and follow the Council of the African Union is a question that then requires the chairperson of the African Union to step in and use their political power in order to urge those leaders to abide by the conditions that the African Union put across.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. That was Siphamandla Zondi from the University of Pretoria.